Shadow play, an ancient form of storytelling where flat characters are held in between a source of light and a screen, allowing a shadow to appear on the screen, where it can be seen to move and play in front of viewers. Shadow play, a 1986 ghost romance movie that uses relatively flat characters to act, sort of, in front of a light source, but behind a screen that hides the point of most things, most times, only allowing for brief glimpses of true mystery and a few surprises every now and then. I'm taking you back now to late 1979, where Morgan, a writer, and her fiancé Jeremy are having a wedding. But on the eve of their wedding, Jeremy takes his final bow off the stage of life, literally tumbling off from the heights of a lighthouse, dying on an evening that is not as dark and stormy as the sea he fell into, and is not as dark and mysterious as the circumstances surrounding his death. Now it's 7 years later. Morgan has continued on living, now a playwright who somehow has made a living writing comedic plays. I mean, what do you write after your lover takes a dive off of a lighthouse but comedic plays, right? It makes total sense. After hitting the mother of all writer's block, imagine, Morgan is compelled by bad dreams to stop writing comedy and begin writing mysterious poetry instead. I mean, given her life so far, is anyone surprised? That seems a more reliable thing to write than comedy. Anyway, the poetry forms into a new play, its verse studded with words about shadows, magic, mirrors, and more. It is a freeform style that she doesn't recognize, and it utterly consumes her. With a new muse whispering into her ear, Morgan rips up her writer's block and throws away her life as a playwright in New York City. She decides to return to the same coast and the same house where she and Jeremy were living before his tragic accident. There, in the same place he died all those years ago, Morgan begins to have not just dreams of him, but sees the reflection of her fiancé, Jeremy. She sees him in glass, in words, and in the flesh of others, like Jeremy's brother, John. John, the brother who was there when Jeremy died. John, the brother who was always there when Jeremy was with Morgan, when they were together. Always there, always smiling, but also always watching them. Now John admits he wants Morgan. He tells Morgan that she didn't have anything to do with the tragedy from that night, that John clearly committed suicide, and he was there, he saw it. He also tells Morgan that they were meant to be together, and that all of this has just been a matter of fate. But is this fate? What was it that really happened that night? As Morgan doubts, as her purpose in life becomes uncertain, as John's words become unreliable, the visions only become clearer. Shadow play isn't perfect, but it is an enigmatic and suitably creepy movie. I have to admit I probably wouldn't have watched it if it was set in any other era than the 70s or the 80s. Something about that growly new age synth, the now quaint aha-level special effects sequences, and that one actress who looks and acts just like Robin from Stranger Things, hubba hubba. That stuff just works for me, so that's why I watched this movie, and I don't care if you judge me for it. Usually I don't watch Lifetime-type ghost stories, whatever. Speaking of acting, Scream Queen actress lead Dee Wallace is just okay here. She's a bit weepy and gravitationally doomed to just orbit the male characters in the film. By about the fifth orange-tinged flashback to the 1970s and her former relationship, you just want to scream, "Girl, move on. This guy's dead. You're alive. Live." Doris Leachman plays a nearly crazy cat lady who has her own tragedy that goes literally nowhere in the film. One of those flatlanders that I mentioned before, the thin characters. The most interesting side character in Shadow Play is Byron. I guess he's named after the author. I don't know. And that's mostly because he has a penchant for fortune-telling and mysticism and being, again, enigmatic. Or maybe it's because he has one arm. Or a parrot. I can't say which for certain. I was surprised to see that the director, Susan Shadburn, had some Oscar nomination clout. It turns out she's the wife of Will Vinton. Yeah, the claymation guy who made the California Raisins. Bet you didn't see that coming. I also didn't expect some of the twists to Shadow Play. There's at least one good spooky moment in the middle of the film that really draws you in. It's really in the middle of the film, actually. It takes about 30 minutes of almost nothing happening for it to finally recall, oh yeah, I'm a ghost movie, and do something. There's also another oh moment at the end that I didn't see it coming. In fact, the movie totally led me by the ear and then smacked me for thinking it was going to be one way with the plot when it really was another. It was that defying of expectations that led me to concede that, along with Shadowplay's atmosphere, there is some magic to it that makes it worth coming into romance, spooky, ghost woman love story movie land, which I don't often go into. I have to give Shadowplay 3 haunted typewriters out of 5. Shadowplay is like a lighthouse on a seaside cliff. Most times, its sentinel gaze reveals nothing at all but empty sea. Other times, its light shows something important out there in the distance. But you're only going to see it for that moment that's as brief as the turning of the torch that's lighting this Shadowplay.